In the dusty plains of New Mexico Territory, back in 1882, the small mining town of Appaloosa was gripped by fear. A powerful rancher named Randall Bragg had turned the place into his personal kingdom. His gang of rough cowboys did whatever they wanted, intimidating folks, disrupting businesses, and worse. When the town marshal and his 2 deputies rode out to Bragg's ranch to arrest a couple of his men for a brutal murder, Bragg didn't hesitate. He drew his gun and shot all 3 lawmen dead in cold blood, right there in front of their horses. Word of the killing spread fast, and the terrified town leaders knew they needed help. That's when 2 itinerant peacekeepers rode into the picture. Virgil Cole and his longtime partner, Everett Hitch. Virgil was a no-nonsense gunfighter with a reputation for bringing order to lawless towns. Calm under fire and deadly accurate with his Colt. Everett, an educated man who'd graduated from West Point before trading the military for the open frontier, carried an 8-gauge shotgun that could stop a charging bull. The 2 had been riding together for over a dozen years, backing each other in gunfights and sharing a bond deeper than most brothers. We've been keeping the peace together for quite a spell.
We've been keeping the peace together for the last dozen years or so,
Everett would say. The town elders begged Virgil and Everett to take the job as marshal and deputy. Bragg and his men have got us all running scared, one of them pleaded. We want our town back. Virgil agreed, but only if the leaders gave him full authority to make and enforce the laws. No questions asked. They hesitated.
This means you'd be running the town.
It does.
Just then, news came that Bragg's men were tearing up the saloon again. With no time to waste, the elders signed the deal. Virgil and Everett wasted no time heading to the saloon. Bragg's cowboys were drunk and destructive, smashing bottles and harassing the bartender. When the new lawman ordered them to stop or face jail, the outlaws laughed it off. We don't recognize you as marshal, one snarled. Virgil gave them one last warning. Reach for your guns, and you're done. They reached. In a flash of smoke and thunder, Virgil and Everett drew and fired. 3 of Bragg's men dropped dead on the sawdust floor. The next day, Bragg himself rode into town with his whole gang, dust kicking up behind them. The town held its breath as they stormed into the saloon, where Virgil and Everett were waiting. Bragg tried to smooth-talk his way out, denying any role in the marshal's murder. But Virgil wasn't buying it. From now on, no guns in town limits, he declared flatly. Next time, we'll disarm you and lock you up. Bragg left with a cold stare, but the message was clear. Appaloosa had new sheriffs in town, and they weren't backing down. Soon after, a refined woman named Allison French stepped off the stagecoach. She carried herself with poise, dressed in fine clothes despite arriving with little more than a suitcase. Everett spotted her first, but when she asked about a decent hotel over breakfast with Virgil, sparks flew. Virgil offered her a room at their lodging and even arranged for her to play piano at the hotel saloon in exchange for board. Folks called her Allie, and she quickly charmed her way into Virgil's life. Before long, they were talking about building a house together, something permanent in a world full of drifting gunslingers. Everett watched it all with quiet approval, stepping back to let his friend have his shot at happiness. But trouble was always brewing. Virgil and Everett spotted some of Bragg's riders watching the town from a nearby ridge. They rode up to confront them. The cowboys claimed the land was outside town limits, but Virgil pistol-whipped one across the face. Bragg don't run things anymore, he growled. Back in town, Allie's piano playing filled the evenings with melody. One night, after she joined Virgil and Everett for drinks, a drunk cowboy cursed loudly near her. Virgil snapped, beating the man senseless until Everett pulled him off. The town leaders grumbled about Virgil's temper, but Everett defended him. You want his protection, you take the whole man. Things heated up when a young ranch hand named Joe came forward. He'd seen Bragg gun down the old marshal and deputies firsthand, and was willing to testify. Virgil and Everett rode out to Bragg's ranch, catching him off guard at the outhouse. They arrested him at gunpoint, even as his men gathered with rifles ready. Bragg ordered them to stand down, glaring murder at Joe as they paraded him through town. With Bragg locked up, Virgil poured his energy into building that house for Allie, but she grew restless, complaining he spent more time on martial duties than on her. One day, she lured Everett over alone, flirting heavily and even kissing him. He pulled away fast. "You're with Virgil," he said firmly. Hurt and rejected, she told him to leave. That same afternoon, Bragg's men rode in bold as brass, demanding his release. Virgil stood alone in the street, facing them down with ice-cold calm. "I'll die before I hand him over," he warned, "and plenty of you will join me." His steady gaze and reputation did the trick. They backed off and rode away. Allie watched the whole standoff, rushing to Virgil afterward, shaken but impressed. As the trial approached, 2 federal marshals arrived to help guard Bragg, and a pair of notorious gunmen, the Shelton brothers, showed up too. Joe testified bravely, painting a clear picture of Bragg's guilt. Despite Bragg's slick defense, the judge found him guilty and sentenced him to hang. Virgil and Everett escorted Bragg by train to the gallows. Everything seemed under control until the train stopped for water. Suddenly, the Shelton brothers emerged from hiding, holding Allie hostage. "Release Bragg or she dies," they demanded. Virgil's world shattered. Duty warred with his heart. In the end, he let Bragg go to save her. The brothers rode off with both Bragg and Allie, leaving Virgil humiliated and furious. He set out on foot to track them, while Everett raced back for horses. Reuniting, they pushed hard across the harsh desert. "You got feelings for her, don't you?" Everett asked. Virgil shrugged it off. Feelings got men killed. When they caught sight of the camp by a river, what they saw hit like a gut punch. Allie, laughing and bathing playfully with one of the Sheltons. Before they could react, Apache warriors attacked the camp. Chaos erupted, gunfire cracking, arrows flying. Virgil and Everett joined the fray, forcing a temporary truce with the Sheltons to survive. Everett even traded Bragg's prized horse to the Apaches for safe passage. That night around the fire, Allie tearfully claimed it was all a mistake, born of fear and loneliness. Then she twisted the knife, accusing Everett of forcing himself on her back in town. Virgil looked her in the eye and believed his friend. "Allie needs a man with power," he said quietly. He accepted her flaws. She was a survivor, just like them. In the next town, they locked Bragg up again, planning a showdown with the Sheltons. But it was a trap. The local marshal was the brothers' cousin. Bullets flew in a brutal ambush. 4 against 2. Virgil and Everett fought like demons, killing the Sheltons and the traitor. But Bragg escaped into the night. Both lawmen took wounds, collapsing in the dust as Allie rushed to Virgil's side. Months later, back in Appaloosa, Virgil walked with a permanent limp, his leg braced. The house was finished, and he and Allie settled into a fragile peace, forgiving the betrayals, or at least pretending to. Then came the shock. Bragg had been pardoned by the president himself, thanks to his boasted connections. He returned to town in fancy suits, flush with money, buying up the Grand Hotel and acting the reformed gentleman. He tried to bury the hatchet with Virgil over dinner, but Virgil wasn't having it. A pardon don't erase murder. Bragg's influence grew fast. The town leaders bent to his will, squeezing Virgil out as marshal. Everett saw the writing on the wall. There was no place left for gunslingers like him, and worse, he spotted Allie slipping into Bragg's hotel room upstairs, drawn once again to the man with power. One quiet evening, Everett said goodbye to the woman he'd been seeing, leaving her a necklace and confessing an old regret, a kill done in anger, not justice. Then he laid his deputy badge on the bar for Bragg and went looking for him. He found Bragg in the hotel, slapped him hard across the face, daring him to fight like a man. Insulted and cornered, Bragg grabbed a gun and stormed outside. Virgil arrived just in time, trying to stop it, but Everett looked him in the eye. "This is the one thing I've ever asked of you." Virgil stepped aside. The street went silent. Bragg drew first, but Everett was lightning fast. One shot echoed, and Bragg crumpled dead on the hotel steps. Everett reloaded calmly, mounted his horse, and rode out of Appaloosa without a backward glance. He'd cleared the path for Virgil to keep his life, his woman, and whatever peace he could find, even if it was built on compromises. As the town faded behind him, Everett headed west, into the vast unknown, searching once more for a place where a man like him might finally fit. And that's the story of how the fastest gun in town brought justice to Appaloosa one last time.